large story. It interests people, can hold them attention for a considerable time, or make stories practically always, human stories practically always about one thing, aren't they? Death. The inevitability of death.
This, of course, was the interview that Tolkien did for the BBC in 1968, where he talks about death, the inevitability of death. And Tom, we just wondered, what are your thoughts on this particular quote?
Well, it's funny because it all kind of came around the same time when I came up with this idea for the Inktober. I actually I don't know if it went by on Instagram or something, but that particular interview went by. And what cracked me up about it was that I hadn't heard that one. And Tolkien's looking at the camera and he says, you know what all the great human stories are about? And I immediately think it's going to be heroism or whatever. And he just goes, death. And I was like, wait, I'm doing this right now. This is awesome. So once it went from sort of a fun little like Inktober to something more serious, I started researching more about that aspect of it, the whole gift of Iluvatar and stuff, and how much it runs through his work. So the quote became perfect. It was like, well, that goes at the front of the book. So and it was like, well, I suggested that, and the publisher was like, yes, that's perfect. We'll get the rights and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was just, I couldn't believe Tolkien was talking to me, I think from the halls of Mendos or something.
Excellent. It is a fascinating kind of little excerpt. It's been doing the rounds kind of on Instagram and I'm sure elsewhere for a while now. But it's a great interview. The whole his thought process is just so interesting and kind of it certainly is not what you'd expect. The death is at the
Right.
core of everything he's written.
Yeah.
Um,
I think when you research him a little bit more, though, I mean, what I love about, I similarly grew up as a kid starting to read like the Norse mythologies, and
yeah.
all of that stuff is just death is infused in it. You know, when I was a kid, I loved Roman and Greek myths, but then I discovered Norse mythology, honestly, through the Thor comic book. But it made me want to read more. So I read the Elder Eddas. I was probably the only 13-year-old asking the librarian for, do you have a copy of the Elder Edda? And but what I loved about it as a kid was that they knew they were going to die. Even their gods were going to die. And I thought
Mhm,
that was
mhm.
fascinating because I had never thought of that. Gods are like running around and having sex with maidens dressed as swans or whatever. You know, that's what gods did. And then the Norse gods, everything was just so fate and all of that. And Ragnarok just blew my mind. So I'm sure it's the same kind of thing with Tolkien. Just that's what goes through it all is there's the inevitability of death, and it's fascinating.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, we've sort of slightly started midway through, so let me just do a very quick introduction for our listeners. Welcome to the Angmar Archives, a channel interested in the art and artifacts inspired by the works of J.R.R. Tolkien. Today, Adam, Sam, and I are joined by another amazing artist, cartoonist, podcaster, voice actor, video director, producer, writer, editor, and now author, Tom Racine. Tom is the
Thank you.
colorist for Lincoln Pierce's Big Nate comic strip and the Max and the Midnights books. Working with writer-artist Michael Kavanagh, formerly with the Washington Post, Tom has won 2 Society of Professional Journalists awards. We're delighted to welcome Tom, and he has kindly agreed to talk with us about his creative process, his influences, and above all, his latest release, the literally wonderful Abecedarium, Doomed to Die, an A to Z of Death in Tolkien, published by HarperCollins. Tom, it's an honor and a great pleasure to welcome you to the channel, and if I may borrow now my customary line from the Lord of the Nazgul, Tom Racine, this is your hour.
Thank you so much. Ridiculous honor. I can't, this whole journey has been so strange, and you guys wrote out to me, and I'm like, are you kidding me? You want to talk to me? This is awesome. So thank you very much.
Brilliant. Well, I will share my screen and we can begin the presentation. Let me know when you can see, and I'll just move this over here. So there it is, Doomed to Die, and that is an A to Z of Death in Tolkien. Uh, Tom, how did this book come about then?
Well, It was basically an Inktober thing I did. Inktober is something that started, I'm not even sure when, way back in the day, 2010 or something like that. It was basically an online thing where people were trying to just celebrate using ink again. It was not necessarily against digital art. I do a lot of digital art. It was more like, let's embrace ink and do it. So every year since then, I usually did either I did a full month or I would do parts of it. And it was fun. It was just fun to draw. And then somewhere around the pandemic, I kind of stopped. I just kind of stopped drawing. And I was doing other things. I was doing, as you said, when you say it out loud like that as a resume, it sounds like I have a zillion careers, but that's kind of what it is as a freelance artist. You just kind of do what you need to do.
Yeah.
And I'd kind of stopped drawing. I just kind of had given up. I do stuff with Big Nate, with Lincoln Purse, like you'd said, but I just kind of gave up on my own stuff. But then I got the idea to do a comic strip called The Wizard Blues about the Blue Wizards. It just came to me and I was like, I'm just going to do this for me. I'm not going to try to put it out there. I'm not going to, it's years and years of trying to make comics happen. Just never happened. I had small groups of fans and it was fun, but nothing had ever really happened with it. But I came up with this idea for the two Blue Wizards and I said, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to write it and enjoy it. And if I do like 15 or 20, maybe I'll start putting them up. And then later that year, Inktober came, and my kids loved when I did Inktober. And so they asked me if I was going to do it again. And I said, okay, maybe I'll do Inktober this year. And every Inktober, I would start with an Edward Gorey homage because I love Edward Gorey. He's the master. And so I think you can't do ink without having something with Edward Gorey. And so every year I would come up with my own little play on Edward Gorey. And then this year, because I'd been doing the comic, I thought, well, how about Gorey and Tolkien? What would I do with that? And immediately, A is for Arwen, done in by sorrow, came into my head. I love that shot in the movies. It's one of my favorite pieces of the entire film with the camera pulls back and her veil is flowing and she's standing there so beautiful. So that's actually, it ends up being the cover of the book. So that came to me, but immediately followed by, hey, arrow, sorrow and arrow look similar. B is for Boromir, shot by many arrows. And I suddenly realized I was onto something. I was like, well, this could be fun. So it started off as one, but it ended up, I realized it could be the whole alphabet. So I got very excited about that. And I took it on as this challenge. I was going to do them all the same size as Gorey. He worked very small. It was a 4x3. And I sat down and I opened up some tabs with all the Tolkien characters and I was clicking through to find the rhymes and match them up. And I did that like in about an hour and I knew I was onto something. It was a lot of fun. So I started that in like late September because I knew if I really wanted to do it right, I'd have to sort of get ahead on it because it's hard to do those every day. So I posted them and by about the letter J, suddenly it was starting to go viral. People, initially it was like I was hoping my 20 or 30 Tolkien friends would say, oh, this is kind of funny. And then it just started getting shared. And I put up a reel for A to J. I'd never even done a reel on Instagram. I was literally like in bed going, hey, I should do a reel. And so I put this reel together from A to J. And I woke up the next morning and it had a couple of thousand views. I'm like, oh, that's awesome, a couple thousand views. Later that day, it had like 20,000 views. And the next morning, it had like 65,000 views. And by the end, it had 400,000 views. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, that's something, right? That means something. So that's how it started. And basically by the end, I figured I would try to pitch it as a book because it never entered my head that it was going to be a book. But the numbers were just there. I figured, well, there's an audience. There must be an audience. And I found out that the only people who can print anything with Tolkien are HarperCollins in the UK, which kind of helps in a way because you can narrow it down. But I also knew that it just wasn't going to happen. This never happened. So I sent them an email, a very pathetic sort of like, hey, I did a thing. People like it. Do you like it? You know, and just hoped that they would like it. And about 2 weeks later, I get an email from a guy named David Braun. I didn't even send it to him. I had sent it to some people in New York. I'd found some emails through a friend of mine who knew some of the editors. But they forwarded it on to David Braun, who's the director of publishers for Estates in the UK. And he does Agatha Christie and Tolkien and other things. And he wrote back. And I'm going to read very quickly. The email is the greatest roller coaster email I've ever had in my entire life. He writes and he says, as the publisher of Tolkien's books, I looked up your Gashly Crumb artwork on Instagram, and after almost 30 years on this job, it is very rare to encounter something quite as fresh as this. It's at once anarchic and clearly in love with its source material, and I respect the fact that the publishing it as a book has come as an afterthought, and who doesn't love Edward Gorey? And I immediately went, oh my God, You know, it's like the one guy on the planet who could make this happen likes it. And that just, I was stunned. And then I read the next sentence and the roller coaster continued. The next sentence is, at first sight, it is completely unpublishable. Okay, all right, so we're done. We're done here. So, so, but after that, basically, he really liked it, and he's been trying to do this kind of thing for a long time with the Tolkien estate, who are very conservative about, and rightly so. I mean, I'm glad that they haven't marketed Tolkien all over the place, you know, and made it sort of cheap. They when it comes to the words, they are extremely only Tolkien gets published in Tolkien kind of thing. But he really wanted this to happen. And so basically over the span of months, he shepherded it through them and we went through a few changes here and there and then they okayed it. So my favorite part of the book is the J.R.R. Tolkien logo up at the top is
Yeah.
from the estate.
Mhm.
I just forget it. That's the pinnacle of my career right there. So it went from weird idea all the way to book within a year, which is like light speed for publishing. And so I'm just sitting here reeling at this point because it literally comes out this week and I have no idea. I'm just beyond happy.
Great.
Congratulations. I'll say this from someone who was watching this throughout the last year or so, it felt pretty quick.
Mm.
So I can only imagine how you must have felt. It must have been a big whirlwind.
Oh, it's insane. Yeah, because I've been involved in publishing for a long time. And it's exciting when my publisher friends are like, hey, I'm getting a book published in 19 months. You know, I mean, that's fast, you know? And so everybody was asking me, is the book coming out? I said, yeah, it's coming out. Oh, it'll be 2026, 2027. I said, no, it's actually this year. And they're all like, what? So, so it's been great. I think David also wanted to push it through because first of all, it's simpler. The artwork, well, the artwork wasn't done. I had to redraw all the artwork, but I was very fast. I did it within a couple of months. I wrote the thing, but it's also Edward Gorey's 100th anniversary birthday this year. And so
Okay.
there was just a little bit of it. He just felt it was, let's move this fast. It was like a window of time where they could print it and get it out. So we did it. So I was very thrilled. I couldn't believe it.
That's brilliant. And I mean, the book opens with this quote that we started off, and it kind of sets the scene really, really nicely for both the artworks and the poem. And you did both the artwork and the poem. And
Yes.
looking at the original Inktober pieces, you've certainly tightened the poem itself. How
Yes.
was that? How was that process for you?
Well, that's when you work with a good editor. I've always had
Hmm.
in publishing, all my author friends say that the most important thing is having a good editor. And
Hmm.
not that I'm, you know, of course, they published my book, but they've been so amazing. I mean, David is a great collaborator. And it's funny because I think he wrote one time, I think he's excited to work on this because every author he works with is dead. So he was very excited to work with a living author again. It's like, wow, we
Yeah.
get to write back and forth. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
The tightening of it is really mostly him and his thing because it was funny. Early on, I wasn't sure how far to lean into the gory part because I didn't want to
Hmm.
upset the gory people. I don't want to steal from gory. I want to homage to gory.
Yeah.
But when one of the first things that the Tolkien estate said was that we should lean more. They wanted the poem to be more gory-esque. So I had in the Inktober expanded a few to sort of explain the characters a little better, some of the more possibly obscure characters to people. So I kind of went into a little bit more detail at
Hmm.
the expense of the poem. But he came back with here are some suggestions, and then we went back and forth on them, and we tightened it up. So yeah, the whole thing was that in Ghastly Chrome Tinies, I don't think there's any line more than 8 words. So it
Hmm.
was very, you know, everything's got to be right here. So we had to change a few things, but that was definitely a back and forth with the HarperCollins people for sure.
Brilliant. And the kind of contrast or juxtaposition of the humor with the ghastly deaths, it's so
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah,
And it must have been really good fun to do and kind of to play
yeah.
with the images and the text.
For sure. I mean, I'm not, I don't consider myself to be like a gothy person or a very dark
Hmm.
person, but for some reason I've always been drawn to that sort of thing. When I was a kid, I discovered Charles Adams and Gay and Wilson was another cartoonist I love. I love the cartoons that are just, you know, you grow up wanting to draw Garfield and Peanuts, and they're amazing. But then you get a
Hmm.
little bit older, and you suddenly see that cartoons can be so much darker, so much weirder. And I fell in love with that. And I've always tried to have, and my whole family, we have very kind of a dark sense of humor about
Hmm.
things. Is how we deal with things, I think. And so this was such a, it felt right in my wheelhouse. It was like I've always felt that my stuff is too cartoony for comic books, but not too comic booky for cartoons. But in this case, it works. It works like right down the middle.
Mm.
It's a light treatment of a dark subject. And some of them I treat very seriously, and some of them I treated very sort of lighter. You know, I want to get that whole gory feel because, as I talk about with gory a lot, it's one of my favorite things about the Ghastly Chrome Tinies is most of them are about the moment before the death, not the death. And so he'll say, like, something happened, like N is for Neville, who died of ennui, but we see Neville in the background just sitting there, and we know he's about to die, but he's not dead yet. And so I love that. And there are several in the book that I'm really happy. X is my favorite, with the axe heading towards the orc.
Oh,
And it's just like he's looking back, like something's about to happen. That's my favorite one for the gory-esque humor of it. So yeah, balancing that was definitely, yeah. Those, the Olive run through with an awl. I mean, it hasn't happened, but we know what's about to happen. So
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
did the aspect ratio originally the of your pieces was also the
yes.
four? Is it 4:3 as well, or?
Yeah, I actually wrote the Edward Gorey Museum, and they
Mhm.
said he drew them as they're published, and I have a couple of copies of Amphigory, and so I just measured, and yeah, they're just a little 4:3 rectangle. And the main reason is, of course, filling up a page with that much ink, you want it to be as small as possible. So, so it was actually very helpful. David, almost immediately, we wanted to go with the square
Mhm.
in the book because he felt it fit the book better. And I
Yeah.
agreed with that. I thought that was great. Also, I was going to redraw them anyway because I love the Inktober's. They were a lot of fun, but they were still done fairly quickly and all that kind of stuff. And I really, if I'm going to do a book, I wanted to redo everything and fix a few things. Most of them are about the same, but a couple of them changed fairly significantly. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll go through some of these as we run through this. But one thing we thought it might be useful to just kind of set the scene a bit is other previous Tolkien illustrations done in this kind of ink style that is so charming, whimsical, but also quite moving at times. This is just a selection of previous artists, of course. This is the Tove Jansson's
oh,
Hobbit.
so good.
It's
I
it,
loved
it's
one of
it's
my
a
favorite
wonderful.
columns.
Yeah. Tolkien hated it apparently. It's
It did.
Yeah, yeah.
Tove Jansson, and we've got Ingehild Grasmer, which of
Wow.
course is the Queen of Denmark,
Mm,
and Eric Fraser, who drew the final drawings for her. This is the Folio Society edition from the 70s, and I think they still use those drawings for it. This is the Eric Fraser drawings of The Hobbit, of course.
mm.
But is there something specific about ink drawings that kind of appeals to you that you find, particularly kind of um, easy, or in a easy in the sense that it comes to you easily rather than a watercolor or something else, which we're maybe more used to nowadays with kind of other illustrations?
Right. First of all, now I'm going to want, my book pales in comparison to these amazing pieces. I love these things so much. But yeah, black and white is just always, I don't know, there's something about the simplicity of it. My earliest memories of wanting to be a cartoonist were, like I said, Charles Schultz of Peanuts and everything.
Mhm.
So you start working in black and white. But also, as a reader early on, I was a big fan of Winnie the Pooh and is that E.H. Shepard,
Mhm.
amazing work. And then I was a huge Sherlock Holmes fan and the Sidney Paget stuff. And then getting into like editorial cartooning, I did for a little while, and you've got Thomas Nast and all these just amazing artists. And then in comics, it was guys like John Buscema, John Romita. Their inks and their pencils were just so great. And I'm an okay colorist. I do great with like the Big Nate stuff. It's very simple, flat color kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But coloring, painting was never my thing. I always wanted to be. I mean, you looked at like Frank Frazetta and you went, I want to be that guy. But turns out you're not. You're not Frank Frazetta.
Mhm.
So, but I've just always felt very comfortable with the black and white. And again, Charles Adams, things like that. I just feel they have real power. And especially like this, I think when you look at the ones that you're showing, is like it's like they don't distract from the text, they add to the text, they're just part of it. It all sort of flows black and white right in there. And it's just really, it's just such a powerful thing. And I think it's also, I love the challenge of finding light and dark when all you have is black and white. That's, I would open up when I was doing any kind of a texture, I would have Amphigory next to me. It's like, how did he do bricks? How did he do clouds? I mean, and they're different depending on the drawing. He had different ways of doing it. And I would look at artists like this. How do you get light and dark? How do you choose where the light source is and then ink around that? It's such a wonderful challenge. I love that.
It's really great, and I mean these are of course the man himself. These are Tolkien's
Yeah,
illustrations from The Hobbit.
yeah.
I think they have something that I mean your drawings also have a kind of charm and a whimsy that is really suited to the text. Maybe less so than some audiences feel now. I suppose there's a kind of a proliferation of more serious, in some ways, illustrations. But Tolkien himself was doing these, and there's something really characterful about them.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, you can see a lot of his medieval influences. He
Yeah.
was all of that kind of thing too. Is the simplicity of it? I think just enhances the words. I mean, I think what I love about it is that over the years, as I'm an old man now, I
Mhm.
look at I often look at other artists with a certain amount of envy. But as I've gotten older, I've just gotten better at like that's not what I do. This is what I do, and
Mhm.
I love the paintings I see.
Mhm.
The online world of Tolkien art is just blows my mind as an
Yeah.
old guy who grew up in the 70s and 80s with all this stuff. It was such a limited, nichey, little nerdy world that
Mhm.
was pushed off to the side. And I would see guys like the brothers Hildebrandt, and I got that 1978 calendar, which was amazing and blew my mind, and the Ralph Bakshi movie and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But today, oh my God, they're everywhere. I have friends now with so many people around the world doing this amazing Tolkien inspired art. And it makes my art heart so happy to see all of it. But I'm also really good with the diversity of it. I can't paint that way, but I can sit and really admire it. That's for sure.
And the other side of the book, of course, is the humor. And this is just an example of Tolkien's own humor, of course, the famous invitation to Christopher's birthday party with wheelbarrows at 5 a.m. and horses at daybreak, which seems so apt to this conversation. Um, so the book is now published in the UK and is coming out in a couple of days' time on the 11th of November in the US.
Mhm.
And
Well, I got my shipping notice.
Woo!
and we have it's every letter of the alphabet, and I'm sure some letters were easier than others.
Mhm.
But you mentioned that the letter J was a particularly difficult one to
Yeah.
find something.
This one cracked me up. I mean, when you're doing an ABC book, you figure X, Q, Z, they're going to be hard. We
Mhm.
all assume that that's not a problem. Q was easy because it was a queen. So yay, Queen Tarmariel. It was awesome.
Mhm.
But when I was going through, there's a whole, I found a website that had all the major characters and stuff. There's no Tolkien characters that begin with the letter J.
Mhm.
Zero. And I was like, really? There's nothing. There's 7,000 Fs, but there's no J's. It's like he got to the letter F and stopped. Oh, that's enough for me. I'm just gonna
That's
say,
enough.
like dolphin.
Uh-huh.
But so when I first did it, the one you on the screen, I had to punt. I'm like, I don't know, what a jerky spider. There you go. Then I can draw a sting, and I can it's a fun moment, and so I figured, oh, that's all right. But I never liked it. It was sort of like it just felt cheap. And then what cracked me up is literally the day Jay was going to go out, the next
Mhm.
day, I suddenly went, hey, I just thought of a J. There's a guy named J.R.R. Tolkien. Remember that guy? And then it hit me. I was like, J.R.R. Tolkien, perfect. So I did the homage to him. And then that ends up being like almost everybody's favorite. That's the one everybody comments on. And it literally came to me the day before. I can't believe I couldn't think of it. But it felt really, really good because I'm like, oh, that's so perfect because we honor him for all of these amazing words. So it was just this weird, like meant to be sort of moment with the J one. So I looked up I knew his gravestone had Luthien and Baron on it. So I just did it out. And yeah, I'm very, very happy with that one. But it was so funny to me that I didn't think of that first. So
Definitely one of my favorite ones as well.
that's great.
Yeah.
It is a really moving moment in the book when you get to it. It is wonderful.
Yeah, I think
Um,
it's because it's with all the other ones and people turn the page and then it's J.R. Tolkien. It seems to have an effect on people, which I think is
yeah,
great.
yeah. And then we have, of course, E for Ectelion and F for Fëanor, and these are the Inktober originals.
Hmm.
Um, there's something really interesting with the Fëanor one in particular. I know you're a big fan of Monty Python, and it kind of reminded me of a
Yes,
Terry Gilliam kind of, the
that's
Bigfoot that.
totally 100%. You had said something about the British humor, and I'm going to have to talk about this all the time from now on. I'm a huge Anglophile. I was introduced to Monty Python when I was like 8, when they first started airing them in New York in 1974 or something. My brother Bill was like, "You've got to see this," and he put them on, and I was hooked. Monty Python, and then a lot of my writing I take from Douglas Adams. I'm a huge Douglas Adams fan. I discovered P.G. Wodehouse as a young kid. Love just the way the English have a way with the words, the Irish have a way with the words. It's just everything about the humor. It's so much fun. We just actually 2 days ago, my wife and I saw Sarah Millican
Oh, right,
in San
yes, yeah.
Diego, I'm a huge fan. It was like, oh, she's coming to San Diego. So big British influence. But yeah, I mean, the Fëanor one is kind of a twofold thing. There's definitely Monty Python. And also there was a little indie animation from a zillion years ago called Bambi versus Godzilla. And it was literally like 10 seconds long, where it's this pencil test of like Bambi's eating and everything's nice, and suddenly it looks up and Godzilla's foot goes and that's it. That's the whole thing. And it just killed me. I love that as an animator. That one killed me. So it was a combination of those two things. But the one in the book, I don't know if you're going to talk about, though, the Fëanor in the book is extremely different.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because what happened was I got to F and I was like, Fëanor, and I'm reading up on him. It'd been a while since I'd read the Silmarillion, so I was refamiliarizing myself with some of these things. And he's like, oh, he's killed by Gothmog. And immediately I thought, oh, funny, he's stepped on by Gothmog. Isn't that funny? And then when the book came about, I wanted to get more serious about it. Like with the Ecthelion, I chose a different camera angle. That was hard to draw, but I really liked that. It shows the helmet in the middle. So I was very happy to do that one. But then I came to Fëanor, I was reading up on him, and I just reread that whole section, and I was listening to it on the Andy Serkis audiobook.
Oh, yeah.
And his death is so amazing. I said, I can't make fun of this one. It's like this is not a stepped on by a Balrog moment to happen. Because when you read up on it, I just did a video actually. I read the piece and then showed the video. I'm doing the little marketing videos where I'm reading the actual passages out loud, mostly because it's fun as a voice actor to try that. But that whole passage is amazing, where he gets mortally wounded and he's still not dead. His sons have to drag him from the battlefield, and he looks at Angband and he curses Morgoth 3 times, and then he's so angry he bursts into flame, and his spirit, as it leaves his body, just destroys his body, and no one has ever had that happen except for him. And I was like, well, that's the coolest moment of all time, isn't it? And so I got to draw him, being, snapped out by Thanos there. And it was so much fun to draw. So that one completely changed in terms of humor, that's for sure.
It's really great. And I suppose in terms of the letter F, as you said, there are so many Fs. How was it instant that you knew it's going to be Fëanor, or was there, maybe Fingolfin, maybe Fingon, maybe, Finrod?
The Fingolfin one would be a close second, because that's an amazing moment, and that's one that kind of intimidates me, because I've seen some great painters, like heavy metal sort of magazine, sort of amazing painters with that moment, and I'm not sure I could capture that. I think I was intimidated by that, but I think Fëanor all the time. He drives the Silmarillion. He's the main character of why everything happens. Guy made some pretty gems, and the world felt his powers. He was definitely my first choice on that one. Yeah.
Brilliant, awesome. And then we have Morgoth, of course, and Nimrodel. And again, these are the originals. I think these are a really good example of that simplifying of the verse, where the particularly Nimrodel becomes, much tighter, but it's they retain the same kind of quality. In some ways, maybe that's less is more in some ways.
Oh, 100%. I think with the poem, I think that was what the estate said, and I immediately agreed with them, that the part of the power of the Gashly Crumb Tinies is that it's just so punchy and boom, boom, boom. It's like 7 or 8 words, it just hits you, and the rhythm of the poem fits the illustration so beautifully. And so, yeah, when we went back and forth, and David made a bunch of suggestions, and we went back and forth on them, I was so happy that he had done that. And that was actually the first indication that I felt that maybe this book would happen, because he literally wrote me on like a Monday. He had spent the weekend revamping my poem to get it to this level. This was long before it was approved. And I was like, why would he do that unless he really believed in it. You know, this guy has been doing this for 30 years. He doesn't need to spend time on some idiot in San Diego with his poem unless he really thinks it's got something. And I was so blown away by that he took the effort to do that, and then we went back and forth with it. But yeah, that's when I first started having an inkling, like, I think this might happen. This might actually happen. There's at least a chance, you know. So, and the funny thing is, I always feel weird about Morgoth because technically he doesn't die, so he's not really, you know. But I couldn't resist. I mean, he's floating around in a void, and then when I did the book, I got more into reading up on that particular part, and the whole doorway and the whole thing. I added that because that was super cool. I mean, it's just such a great sort of fantasy image of this, you know, ultimate bad guy is so bad they don't know what to do with him. They just throw him into the void. Okay, here, just wait. You know, so and Nimrodel, I felt I had to explain more in Inktober because I didn't really know anything about Nimrodel. When I was clicking through the names, I was like Nimrodel, and I clicked on it. I read up. I'm like, oh, that's so beautiful and tragic and wonderful. But it was not a character I had really any knowledge of. And there's only like this much about Nimrodel, quite honestly. But it was so beautiful. It was such a beautiful thing. And I really wanted to bring more Silmarillion and other characters in just to, you know, expand it. I didn't want it to all be, you know, Lord of the Rings stuff necessarily. So that was a beautiful one that I learned about as I did it. It's very Ophelia.
It is, and I really love the way you've done the light in this one. The kind of the beam is so kind of subtle, but very, very gorgeous.
Thank you. That's actually played over when I got, I don't know if we'll talk about it, but the second book is coming out in August of Shakespeare, which I'm super excited about. But all of the Shakespeare, spoiler, just in case, you know, I pitched that whole thing right away. It's like, oh, look, they're interested. Here's more. But in all of the Shakespeare drawings, there's light because I'm treating it like a theatrical thing. I have a lot of theater background. My wife is an actress. My kids are involved in theater. I've been in tech theater all my life. And so I'm like, there's light sources everywhere. And Nimrodel was actually one of the first ones that really made me think that. It was like, oh, that's great, you know, a shaft of light. And so it worked out really nice.
And then we move on to Q&R again, Queen Tarmiriel and Theoden. I think something that's really interesting with these is, and you touched briefly on it earlier about the camera angle, and particularly the Theoden's camera angle. It's a kind of very, very low, almost worm's eye. It's a really interesting choice.
Yeah, I'm a big film buff, and I've made a few films, and so camera angles. I just think in terms of camera angles all the time as a even a wannabe comic book guy, because you have to know a little bit about cinematography to do comics, and so yeah, you're always thinking about that because it's a much better shot if you're on the ground looking at him as his horse is being freaked out by a giant flying fell beast. And so, yeah, I lowered the camera a little bit on that one. And horses are hard to draw. I'm not a horse drawer. Boy, that's Snowmane was a lot of sketches, and I'm still not sure it works. But horses are tough. Let's put it that way. And Queen Tarmiriel, I think, as the more I read up on that and reread the whole Kelebeth and all of that stuff, because that's the whole Numenor thing really ties into. I knew it was going to come up a lot with this book because the whole concept of the gift of Iluvatar and men fighting back against it, and that's the little. I don't know if you were going to mention it, but there's the Easter egg runes up there.
Oh yes, yeah.
That says the gift of Iluvatar, which I think is kind of cool, little nerdy little thing. But with Queen Tarmiriel, when you really read up on it, that's the most tragic death. I mean, I feel she's completely innocent. I mean, she was supposed to take over, and then Al-Farazan comes in and says, "Nope, we're going to take over. And by the way, we're going to go attack the Immortals. Okay, we'll be right back." And then she goes up to the top of the mountain where the holy place is to try to pray, and she ends up drowning with the rest of them. I'm like, oh.
It looks like even the wave is almost saying like, nope.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, come on, Iluvatar, give her a break, man. Jeez. So, yeah, I always feel bad for Queen Muriel.
Same.
We move on to Saruman and Turin, of course. I guess with Saruman, I wonder, did you ever consider Sauron, or was it always Sauron? I guess that's a general question for all of them. Did you have a short list for some letters where you just didn't know which one to pick?
No, I think there were. Once I nailed it down early on in the process, I'm sure I went back and forth on a couple of. You have a few choices. Like somebody today wrote, "Did you do Shelob?" I'm like, "Nope, so I did Saruman." So it's just. once I nailed the poem down, I didn't kind of rethink it because the problem
Yeah.
is that you have to, the rhyming scheme is A, A, B, B, C, C. So if you change one, it's got to rhyme with the other one. And
Yeah.
that's not necessarily easy. It's like,
Yeah.
so it became kind of a thing. Once the pieces all fit together, I pretty much stuck with it. I mean, there are more I could do. I don't know if
Hmm.
there's a full 26, but I've thought about doing more maybe as prints or something because there's the whole, like, I can sell my original art. I can sell prints I make of other things. So I was thinking about adding other deaths. So
Yeah.
there are other choices, but the Saruman one is one of my favorites. I mean, that's just such a great moment. And I think one of my favorite pieces of writing is when Wormtongue kills him and Saruman's spear comes up and tries to go to the east,
Yeah.
and then the east says no. And it's just like, in its own way, it's like super tragic. It's like you were such a good guy. You were sent there to do good, and now you can't even go back.
Now
It's
look at
like,
me.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Now he's just wandering the earth. So I that was a definite one I had to do. And how can you
Um,
not do Turin? I mean, come on, he kills a
of
dragon,
course.
he
Yeah.
stabs himself with a cursed sword. I mean, come on, that's
It's interesting how many, there's quite a few suicides in this, which is quite interesting. A kind of,
yeah, yeah. Same
some
with Shakespeare.
murders. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Never
yeah,
Shakespeare.
exactly. Yeah.
A lot of suicide in Shakespeare. Yeah,
Um, and then we move on to there's no other you could have done. It's
yeah, yeah,
and it is one of the greatest deaths of in the
yeah.
Legendarium. I love this Ungoliant in the published version.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
it's such a great design for her.
Well, I hated the other one because by the time I reached the end, like I said, I had started before to like build up a buffer, but by the end, by the time you get to UVWX, so I was like
Mhm.
right up against it. It was like it has to go up tomorrow. So, and spiders A are hard to draw. B,
Yeah.
Ungoliant isn't necessarily a spider; it's a spider-like thing. And so when you would go online, sometimes I would look online for other references and see what people had
Mhm.
done. Ungoliant's all over the map. They're
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
just everybody draws Ungoliant differently. One is I saw it was really cool. It's like she was like a centaur, but it was like the body of a woman with a huge spider
Yeah.
behind it. And so
Uh-huh.
I hated the drawing from Inktober. It was
Mhm.
just terrible. It was one of my least favorite. So Ungoliant drove me crazy. I did probably 30 sketches of different types of spider-like creatures. And then the other
Mhm.
problem is that you need a sense of scale because she's huge and there's nothing to give her scale. I couldn't have anybody there because she dies in darkness somewhere. It's not even, it's like kind of mentioned in, it's a lost tale
Mhm.
or something. I'm not
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
100% sure. And so it's basically she consumes herself because she's so hungry and there's nothing left to eat but herself. So how do you get that sense of scale when you've just got this giant thing? So basically, I eventually figured out, well, if the thing is coming towards the camera, that helps. It
Yeah.
makes it look kind of bigger. And then I ended up with a creature design I liked. It was sort of alien queen from Aliens.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
same kind of big head thing going on, and so it just took some elements from that, and finally was happy with it. But wow, Ungoliant I was wrestling Ungoliant for a while.
It's really great art. It's one of my favorite Ungoliant depictions, I think now,
Oh,
with the
that's
kind of
awesome.
spiked crown for a
Yeah,
head.
yeah, yeah.
And I personally find V one of the most moving ones, actually, with the kind of
Agreed.
with the Book of Mother Bull.
Mhm.
It's so good, and again that light
Yeah,
shining on Balim's tomb.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it didn't really change much between the original, but there's something about the square composition on it that really is
yeah.
kind of perfect.
Yeah, I was able to play a little bit with the camera, but mostly I went into much more detail on the tomb. I
Mhm.
made sure the runes were the ones that they say are on there, so those are the actual runes. And yeah, I think it's also great because I think a lot of people, I've had a lot of comments from people they didn't realize that that skeleton holding the book in Lord of the Rings movie was
Mhm.
Ori. And
Yeah.
I've had so many people like send me cry emojis like, "Oh my God," it's like sorry, yeah. It's like that's where he ends up, man. Sorry.
Mhm.
So yeah, that one was fun, and also yeah, very 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 tragic. I always feel bad because Ori is obviously not a warrior. He's the writer. He's the
Yeah.
scribe. He's the artist. He's probably the guy who did the illustration somewhere. And so I always identified with him as a character as well.
Yeah, it's great. And then here's your favorite one, the axe. It's so funny. It's
Yeah.
um
And yeah, I played
um
with the light on that one too to really
yeah.
emphasize the axe and everything. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And that's very gory. I mean, the clouds, the texture on the brick and everything, that's extremely gory. So I have a good time with that one. And of course, who doesn't want to draw the Witch King? I mean, that's
Yeah,
one of the great moments. Yeah, I love that one.
it's really really good, and the kind of explosion in the um in the stabbing of the head has worked out really
Yeah,
really nicely.
yeah,
I like both versions, but the
yeah.
published one is really really great.
Yeah, that's one I can look at both of them and be pretty proud. I like that first one too. It's just got a certain energy I really like because that one there are times when Square it works against you. You
Mm,
know, when you've got a little bit more landscape, like with the previous one, you can have everyone on one side and then there's a lot of action heading to the right.
yeah.
And, you know, so your eye goes with her. She's got a really cool moment. The sword is horizontal, goes right into his head and it's exploding. I almost prefer that layout, but when you're Square, you don't have that. You have to do it differently. And it's one of those things as a designer that it's hard to explain to people, but square
Mhm.
and rectangles are extremely different when you do layouts. I can't tell you the number of jobs I've worked at where you do a logo and somebody says, "Great, can we put it on a billboard and a tall, thin thing?" No,
Yeah.
no, you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always fun. But you're an architect, same kind of thing. I'm sure it's just like, no,
Yeah.
these are very different shapes.
The,
So,
yes, yeah, very, very different.
yeah,
Can't really mess around with them too, particularly with the square, which is a perfect geometry.
right, right,
There's no the rectangle can be anything but a square, but a square can
right.
only be a square.
It can only be a
Uh,
square, yeah. And that's why I think this one works too. I like the circle in the square. I think it helps.
yeah,
And
yeah,
obviously
yeah,
I think in today with Instagram square works better anyway. You know, it's easier to put up on Instagram, everything's square. So, you know,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I was very happy to redo them because I was going to redo them anyway, but it was a challenge. Some of them were a real challenge.
yeah.
Was X quite a challenging one to come up with, just because of the obviously the letter that did that text and
Yeah.
stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you got to punt at least a little bit, but I mean, I think Axe is close enough.
yeah,
And you know, I was
yeah.
hoping there was like a hidden Xerxes or something somewhere in Tolkien, but no such luck. But but then yeah, Gimli's axe. I mean, that's great. I can work in Gimli too. That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have Theodred and Ziraxigil. Um,
Zeraxigil. I'm so
I
happy to find Zeraxigil.
the Theodred one in particular, I think it's one of my favorites with the
Mm,
kind of plan view that I don't. It's the only one that you're doing that, I think, where
yeah,
you're
yeah,
looking down on them, and it's so kind of it's a slight echo of the movie scene of the
yeah.
burial, but
There's a shot or two that's sort of like that, but yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, it just felt that way. It felt like it'd be my best way to show him laying on a
yeah,
bier, being pushed in. And yeah, that's
yeah,
a challenge too. You change the angle now. The harder part, he's easy to draw. All the people standing, looking straight down on people, that's a challenge.
yeah,
That's always
yeah,
interesting because Theoden's holding the flower and Eowyn's there and flowers are flying off. And so I'm trying to make sure that I'm showing the symbolmina and all that
yeah,
kind of stuff. So, and actually these two together because the Raxigil is another sort of weird camera angle. You're flying high above and that
yeah,
one was all about perspective and size because I'm dealing with a human-sized Gandalf, a large Balrog, a mountain, and the ruin of a giant staircase, and all has to fit into a square.
yeah.
So that one was tough. But as I joked, I was so happy to find. I couldn't think of something for Z. I was like,
Mhm.
Z, I don't know. And then I was reading up and I clicked on, I was looking at Gandalf or something that says, it died on the mountain of Zeraxigil. I'm like, Zeraxigil! Oh! You know? It's like, I was so happy for Zeraxigil.
It's great, and I think it's one of the most moving of the poem lines when you come to it.
Mm.
The kind of turned white just works really, really beautifully.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Blending
that
into
was
the
yeah, and also
heading.
I love drawing architecture. I studied it for a while, so I was
Mhm.
had fun with the ruins and the angle and the staircase and everything. That was a real challenge.
And so the book is now out, or will soon be in the US as well. And you seem to be having a great amount of fun also promoting the book. Um,
More fun than making the book. I honestly, they've been so much fun. They came to me and said that they were going to do. I had done for Mysterious Galaxy, which is my local bookstore. They're amazing. They do a lot of cons around the country. They're the book provider for stuff, and I've gotten to know several of the people there. They're just so wonderful. So I just did a signing of all the pre-orders went there. And they said, you know, we often, when you do a pre-order, we often do like a special print or something. And I was like, oh, that'd be great. So I drew a picture of the Witch King with the umbrella has sort of become, and I did him just as a joke. And David loved it. And he said, we got to put this in the book somewhere. So he's on the back cover and everything. So he's going to become like the mascot for the book. So I drew a picture of him and then the logo of Mysterious Galaxies falling down over the umbrella. And I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. And then they said, oh, we're releasing it in England and in Sweden and in Norway. And I was like, can I do stuff for them? And they were like, yes, you can. So I think they like working with an author who can like promote his own thing. So I had a blast. In the UK one, I mean, obviously Abbey Road came to mind right away. And I'm particularly proud, by the way, that Gollum is where Paul was, because Paul was barefoot. So that's why Gollum is there.
Easter eggs even in the promotional material. Yeah.
When I did the first sketch, Gollum was where Boromir was. I was like, no, wait, Paul's barefoot, because that was a whole like controversy. Paul is dead because he's barefoot or whatever. There was a whole weird thing, and I'm like, well, Gollum goes right there.
So Tom, you just mentioned it's it didn't even cross my mind, but it's of course it's Tolkien. It's gonna come out in 20 different languages. Do you know if they are, well, hopefully, but are they going to be translating it potentially if it's being published in kind of other languages?
At this point I don't know of any plans. First of all, with the publishing world, it's funny how much authors don't know about their books. It's kind of funny. I believe we've talked about that right from the beginning, because obviously Tolkien is translated into many, many languages. I know that one of the most interesting things I found out early on was that Brazil, apparently one of the biggest markets for all of Tolkien, because there was a publisher down there who just loves Tolkien and buys everything and has it translated. But there are two obstacles that would be hard to overcome. And so I don't know if they're going to do this or not. I really hope they do, because that'd be so awesome. But the two obstacles are sometimes names change, first letters. And I don't know, I haven't had anybody confirm this, because Tolkien was so specific about names. I don't know if it changes. Like when I do Big Nate is called a million things around the world. He's called Max in one place. He's called Sam in another, which always blows me away. But I understand that there can be translation issues, or Nate just isn't a name people use or whatever. But I think with Tolkien, Aragorn is Aragorn is Aragorn. I don't think it changes much, but that would be something to deal with. Different alphabets would be something to deal with, because obviously I don't speak Russian or Cyrillic or Polish or whatever. So there may be changes there. And then of course there's the poetry aspect of it. So you have to rhyme AABBCC, and I can't help you there. Google Translate's not going to do that. So, so if they do it, it would be so awesome, but I really don't know. I'd like to think if the book sells well, they would have motivation to do that. But yeah, that one's out of my hand. I've told them, I said, look, if we need to do other drawings, then great. If you need to bring in a different character or something, for sure, we'll do a foreign version with a different character. That'd be great.
Brilliant. And then you've also done these promotional posters, which I similarly I would buy a book with just those. They are.
I would too.
they're
years of graphic design have paid off finally, and just comedy writing. Yeah, I mean, this is right up my alley. They're all single panel cartoons. I mean, and I'm just, I forget which one the first one was. I think it was, my favorite was Denethor. It said Boromir would have already bought a book by now. And that one, and then it exploded from there. There it is. Yeah, Boromir would have already pre-ordered this book. And it just exploded. I mean, seriously, I started writing them down like, oh my God, okay, that's fun. Oh yeah, I can get this image. Oh, I think like 50 of them came out. So I'm having more fun with those than anything else.
They're so funny. Yeah.
The bestie one, that one cracked me up. Spoiler alert, LOL.
Yeah. So the book is still for pre-order in the States, but it's out in the UK.
2 days.
2 days.
Yeah, the 11th coming out. I'm having a book birthday on the 13th at a place called Serpentine Cider, and I never thought this was ever going to happen. I'm soaking all of this up. It's so cool. Now I will have 2 books, so I get to be a little pompous about that. But just having one alone, just amazing.
And of course that is coming next August. Your Shakespeare book.
Yep, all the art is sitting here right next to me. I have it all. I can give you a preview. This is one of my favorites of Macbeth killing Duncan.
Oh wow, I love that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
When you announced that, when you shared that, I was like, "Get out of here!" I kind of wheeled out loud, and I was like, "This is amazing, Shakespeare!" I'm a huge Shakespeare fan. So
Shakespeare right here. I'll turn real quick. I have this on my wall.
Oh.
Me and Bill go way back, man, all the way to
But
college. And my wife is an actor, and I've worked in so many Shakespeare productions as a backstage guy. We see them all the time, huge fan. So that
great.
one came right out because, again, like I have a lot of author friends who are like, "Look, you strike while the iron's hot." You know, if they like one book, then they want more because series are better to sell and all that kind of thing. And I
Absolutely.
immediately wrote a Shakespeare and a Poe because I'm a huge
Oh
Poe
yeah.
fan.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And so Poe might happen down the
Hmm.
line, but it was funny being from England. David Braun wrote, says, Poe's not as big over here. And I was like, heretic! No!
Get
So,
out of here.
yeah, get out of here, Sagarel and Poe. So, and there's a third one that I don't want to talk about because I don't have a contract yet. So that one's
Hmm.
possibly very much happening. But I definitely the Shakespeare and the Poe for sure.
Hmm.
And I've been writing I have other ideas like people in history or famous artists. I mean, I really feel that there could be more because it's all stuff I'm really interested in.
Yeah.
And but the Poe and the Shakespeare ones flew out, and I was like, here's a pitch, and so they really liked the Shakespeare one. So I was very happy about that.
Well, with the you mentioned David also works on Agatha Christie, and it feels like one that might be right up this.
Yeah, it's thing. Yeah. That one,
No,
that I again, I can't really talk
yeah,
about it
yeah,
because
of course,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
like talking
yeah,
about things that aren't signed.
yeah, 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 yeah,
But it's been in the works. But this is one that he's obviously going to be much more involved in because I'm not. I love Agatha Christie and I've
yeah,
read some Agatha Christie, love the books, but I really don't know Agatha Christie,
yeah,
and that's
yeah,
another
yeah,
whole fandom that is going to be super specific. And
yeah.
that one I'm a little scared of, quite honestly,
Mhm.
because it's like the scene of someone's death, there has to be this painting on the wall. There has to be a ventriloquist dummy in the background, and this person has to be 2 o'clock. And it's like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to really pay
Yeah.
attention to the Agatha Christie stuff if
If
we
it,
get there. So the Shakespeare one was a lot of fun because first of all, I know it really well, but secondly, you have a lot of leeway. It's a play.
Yeah.
It can be anything. I chose to put them all in sort of in situations like, so if it's a Roman play, it's in Roman. So I didn't do anything like Macbeth in space. That would have been, I don't need to do that. So,
No.
but
yeah.
with things like Christie and with Tolkien, I had to go make sure and go back that there were moments that have to be right. My favorite one is I was drawing Turin and I was drawing Glaurung in the background, right? And
Mhm.
I'm listening to Andy Serkis, and right at that point where he's talking about Glaurung dying and
Mhm.
all kind of stuff, and as I'm drawing Glaurung, I'm about to ink around his eyes. Andy Serkis says, and Glaurung looked at him with his lidless eye, and I was literally about to ink it closed with a lid, and I went, "Oh, okay, stop." So I had to make it roll back into his head a little bit. I was like, wow, because if he had a lid, somebody would say he has lidless eyes.
He is
So
like,
yeah, so I wanted to make sure I got all those things right.
that's
Um,
amazing.
in terms of your process of actually doing these, do you start with a kind of little pencil thumbnail, or do you go straight into ink?
No, no, no. Very a lot of I'm a storyboard kind of comic guy. Very inky, very little 1 inch kind of like okay, lay that out and then blow it up a little bit, make it a little bitter,
Mhm.
and then usually they go pretty quick. There have been a few, like I said, on Goli, it was like 30 sketches. Most of them go
Yeah.
pretty fast. I have an image in my head. It's just a matter of getting it from here to there.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's always the small thumbnail, and then I do a
Mhm.
full sketch, and then I do a tight sketch on board, and then I ink that. So yeah.
And
I wanted to make sure it had to be all traditional. Again, nothing wrong with digital art. Love digital art, but I couldn't, in good conscience, do anything having related to Edward Gorey or Tolkien digitally. I just felt,
yeah.
and again, I don't think there's a problem with that, but this particular thing with pen and ink felt like it had to be pen and ink. So that's why I'm doing it all traditional. It's also really nice. I love having the originals to just play with and hang up on my wall someday. So
Absolutely. And for the artists in the audience, do you maybe want to share your tools of choice? What sort of
yeah,
ink do you use? What sort of paper do you use? What's your
yeah, yeah.
pencil of choice? Hmm.
Yeah, because Anna Stead over there of Thistle Moon, I
Oh yeah.
love her
Hmm.
work, and she's
Hmm.
digital, but it's amazing. Everything she
Yeah.
does is amazing. So I've never been a purist about that. That was a whole discussion back in the
Hmm.
early 2000s of cartoonists going print versus web, and they'd all get angry at each other. And I'm like,
Hmm.
it's a tool. It's just a tool. It's whatever you want. The only one advantage traditional has is that I can hold it, put it up on a wall.
Yeah.
I think it has more value in the long run to have a
Yeah.
painting as opposed to a digital painting, but artistically, they're exactly the same to me. It still takes
Yeah.
the same amount of effort, same amount of skill, all that kind of stuff. So just to put that to rest.
Yeah.
And Tom, are you looking to sell prints of these or any particular ones? There were
Yeah,
certainly a couple at Oxenmoot this year.
Yeah, that was so weird. They asked me to put my art up next to people like, I don't know, Ted Naismith. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're going to put it in the elevator, like behind a plant or something? What the hell? Yeah, I mean, it's funny because talking about how this naturally evolved, I've been involved in publishing and marketing and all that kind of stuff, but never necessarily for myself. I'm not very good at it myself. So I'm starting to think about that. I know that contractually, I think I can't necessarily sell prints of the stuff from the book without HarperCollins because they want to do it first. So
Right.
I haven't had any discussions with them about mugs or merch. Again, I think they're waiting to see how it does because this is like very untested territory for them because they've never done this with a Tolkien thing. So I think they're very excited about it, but they're going to wait. They're probably going to wait to see if it sells, if it does okay. But in general, I can't necessarily do prints of these.
Yeah.
I could probably, if I tabled at a con, I probably could. But what I'm thinking about doing is if I redraw them, then it's mine. So I'm going to probably end up doing that. Maybe I'll choose some of the ones I really like. And I thought about offering commissions for, tell me your favorite Tolkien death and I'll draw it and send it off to you, which would be great. That'd be a lot of fun to be able to do. So that's in the works, but I got to get off my butt and do that, I guess. So it's a good problem to have. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely, and I mean, you sound to be pretty busy, busy as you are with the other books coming up.
Well, luckily, the Shakespeare's all done. It's all out. I just and I sent it to the editor, and she sent back some stuff. We're going back and forth on it because now I'm just waiting. Yeah. So.
Was the Shakespeare poem difficult to write, or was it fairly kind of?
That one because I know so well. I knew there were very few I had to find. I had to punt on just a couple of issues. And some of them are a little slightly lesser known characters, but just like in Tolkien, you have to sort of go down there. Like the letter N is for Nym, Nym, who's one of the 4 followers of King Henry V, who hangs out with Falstaff all the time. And he dies like off screen being hung. But I did a great, it's one of my favorites because it's an homage to the old farmer with his wife. I can't think of it. What's it called? Oh my
I can't
God.
remember what it's called. I know. Yeah.
I'm an idiot. I'm got everyone. I just lost all cred. I think it's Grant Wood. American Gothic. It's American Gothic. He's standing there with the pitchfork.
Oh yes.
And so I have the executioner standing here holding the rope, and Nym is kind of just looking at him like this. So that one's fun to do. So, but yeah, that one came very quickly because it was just something I was very familiar with.
Brilliant. And are there any events or cons that are coming up that people might be able to find you or to see you in person or get some of your work firsthand?
Hopefully, right now, the next big things that I work a lot with San Diego Comic-Con, and I believe there's probably going to be a signing or two there. I haven't heard anything, but I think this year's going to be a big Tolkien year there because it's the 25th anniversary of Fellowship of the Ring coming out in the movies, which makes me feel 1,000 years old. But I read that somewhere, 25? Like, holy crap, I just watched that last week, right? And I think Rings of Power. Yeah, and Rings of Power is going to be coming out soon. So I think I get the impression that this summer is going to be a big Tolkien thing. And then Westmoot, I don't know if it's been announced or not. I think there's going to be another Westmoot at some point. I'm hoping maybe to be involved in that, but I don't have anything scheduled, let's put it that way. But I would love to. I mean, it'd be great to be over there. My real goal is to get to the UK. I want the Shakespeare book or whatever. I want to be standing there at the Old Globe holding up my book like this. Yes. Just any excuse to fly to the UK, please. Just take me. I'll do anything. I'll sign anything, whatever you want.
That'd be brilliant. I mean, hopefully HarperCollins gets something organized for that. I'm sure it'd be very popular for a signing.
I'm hoping, yeah. So if it sells a zillion copies, then I'll be, suddenly I'll be internationally famous author. It'll be fun, As right now, I'm like, hey, this is cool. So I guess we'll see what happens.
Excellent. Well, Tom, thanks so much for your time doing this. It's such a great book. I couldn't recommend it highly enough. I think it's the perfect Christmas gift for the Tolkien fan in your family that you don't know what what they've got and what you should buy for them.
It's for the nerd in your life, yes.
And the red and white is such a nice kind of combination. I don't know, was the red your kind of call?
No, I'm credit where credit's due. He sent the stuff off to their cover guy, and they sent me this back, and I was like, that's awesome. And then basically, again, working with them has been so great because I immediately said, it'd be cool is if you the runes up top, the Elvish writing, and maybe the name were gold stamped. And he was like, "That's great, that's perfect," and they did it. So I was very happy about that because I'm like, "Oh, cool, I can say things, and they will do them." So, but yeah, but they did all that, the size of the book and everything, because it's gift book size, and it can sit up by the till. All they think of all that stuff, and that was my pitch. It was like, I feel that this is the kind of book that could be a perennial thing every year. You put it up by the till, and last minute pick. Oh, this is great, So hopefully that's what's going to happen. And I couldn't. As soon as I held it in my hand, it was like, oh, this is so real. Listen to that. That's a real book.
We didn't really mention it, but actually the back of the book has a little bit of description for each of the letters, so it's not just 26 pages. It's
the appendices,
yeah.
Appendices of doom. That was my idea. I love that one. So.
Love that.
Well, that came about because David said very early on, he said, I really like this book. I think I'm picturing it as a 96-page book. And my first thought was, he does know there are 26 letters in the alphabet. Checking. And I know enough about publishing. I've put together a zillion books. You have the left-facing page is blank and the right-facing page. So 26 times 2. Okay, I've got at least 52 pages. No problem. What am I going to do with the rest? And then I thought of the appendices, and so I started writing stuff up, and it was so funny. I was like, "Hey, man, I'm never going to be able to fill this." And by the end, I was like, "I need 7 more pages," so I had to squeeze everything down to make sure it fit on each page. Yeah, it ended up working out perfectly. But when he first said 96, I was like, "I have no idea what to put there." So, but I'm really, really proud of that because I really feel that that's actually a good. It's one of those things where it's for the people who don't know certain characters, people who maybe come to this from the movies who've never heard of Morgoth or Nimrodel or whatever, and you read up a little bit. And my biggest goal, and I don't want to take too much time, but with this one, especially the Shakespeare one, I'm a huge fan of education and comics in the classroom. And I really feel that these kind of books I really just want them to make people read. If people go, "Oh, this is great. I haven't read the Silmarillion. This makes me want to read the Silmarillion." And also the flip side of that is if it gets people to look at Edward Gorey's work, because he's nowhere near as famous as he needs to be. But yeah, the appendices was all about that. It was sort of like, maybe you don't know this character. Here's where it happens. And in the Shakespeare book, it's going to be the quote that they say before they die or something, and points out exactly where it is, hoping that people will say, "Oh, I remember this play. I haven't read that in a long time," that kind of thing. So that's like my ultimate goal. If it pushes people to read the books, then my work here is done. So
yeah. Have you had any communication with the Gorey people or the Gorey estate on the book?
No, I would really. The biggest disappointment in my life would be is if they went, "We don't like this book," It's like it's such an honest homage to his work. They follow me on Instagram, which I found very nice. I not that long ago, all of a sudden I noticed that they were following me, and I'm like, okay, that's good. I think the publisher HarperCollins wanted to just kind of wait and see how the book was doing, and then they're going to probably go with that. I mean, I don't care if they sell it in their bookshop or whatever, but it would be wonderful to have them say, "This is a very nice homage," because I have a bunch of his books and it's such a big thing. I hope that they embrace it at least in the spirit in which it was written, for sure.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, thanks ever so much once again, Tom. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, and I do hope people go out and pre-order and purchase this book. It's a really, really great piece.
Thank you so much.
And if people have enjoyed this conversation, I'm just wondering, Adam, is there anything that they can do to support us in this channel as well?
Absolutely. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Share your thoughts. What can we do better? What would you like to see in the future? Share, engage. We're here to listen. Really, really appreciate all of the input so far on this journey.
Brilliant. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.